Welcome back to the second video on building mobile game solvers. In this video, we are going to look at different approaches that we can use to solve the games. I am Surya again from Team Game Automators. So this is the overview. There are mainly three approaches that we will be using to solve the games. Approach 1, image processing. Approach 2, electronics. Approach 3 is using both image processing and electronics. We'll also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each one of these methods. Don't worry if you don't know electronics and image processing, because we will cover it in the videos next. So this is the first method, using image processing and ADB tool. So what you do first, so these are the three steps. The first step is taking a screenshot, the second step is processing the image, and the third step is simulating touch. So in the first step, what happens is that you take the screenshot of the phone screen and send it to the laptop, and that is done through this library called ADB tool. So once you get the image onto your laptop, you use some image processing techniques to figure out what you have to do, and depending on that, you simulate a touch on the screen. So this can be used for games like Stick Hero. So in the first step, you take the screenshot, send it to the laptop, then you use image processing to find the pillars and then the distance between two pillars, and depending on that, you try to figure out the time for which you have to touch the screen and accordingly simulate the touch. So the problem with this method is that it's slow. The screenshot transfer and touch simulation, each of them take about 0.5 seconds. So this can be used for a game that has no time restrictions, but if you have to play games which need real-time response and really quick responses, it's hard to do that. The second approach is using electronics. So here you have sensors on the screen that detect what is happening on the screen. They send this information to the microcontroller, and we use Arduino for most of the tasks in this video series, and depending on that, you simulate the touch. This kind of approach works very well for games like piano tiles, and what you can do here is just have light sensors on top of each of the tile, and you can also have your touch simulation mechanisms on each of the tile. So you can detect which tile has a black color and accordingly simulate a touch at that point. The advantage with this method is that it's very fast, but the problem is that the electronic sensors may not be good enough to detect what's on the screen. For example, this approach cannot be used to solve games like Stick Hero because it's really hard for electronic sensors such as a light detecting resistor to find the distance between two pillars. You will need a camera for this. The third approach is a combination of 1 and 2. So the problem which we had with 1 is that this part was slow, sending screenshots and simulating touch. And for games where you have to respond really fast, you can't use this. So when you want to solve games which are real time and you need quick responses, instead of sending the screenshot of the phone using ADB tool, we are going to use a web camera. The web camera will be mounted on top of the tablet or the phone, and it sends a video stream to the laptop, and this way you can get data at a really fast pace. And other problem which we had in the first step was simulating the touch. It took about 0.5 seconds. So instead of using ADB tool for touching, we can use Arduino and use a touch simulation mechanism, and this would really fasten up things. So this approach is fast but complicated. This is specially used for games like Flappy Bird. So Flappy Bird is a game in which you have to keep tapping the screen every half second or so, and you have to make sure it travels through the screen without hitting the pipes. And for games like this, you have to be really quick at image processing. You have to be really quick. You cannot have a bottleneck. You have to be quick with everything, and that's when the third approach is very helpful to solve real-time games, to solve games where you need responses really quick. So I'm going to tell you about this game Simon Says now, And once I tell you about the game, pause the video and think about which approach would work best for this game. So let me explain the game first. So it has green, red, blue, and yellow, and they light in a specific pattern. For example, this gets so by light up, I'm going to say that means that these LEDs here will get bright. So they glow in a specific pattern. For example, red, green, blue, blue, yellow. That could be one pattern, and the user is expected to remember what the pattern was and then type that in again. So that is what the game is. Pause the video and think about the best possible approach for this. For the game, Simon says it's hard to get the approach 1 to work because there's a huge delay here. You already have a delay of 1 second, and in that time maybe the one of the LEDs will glow and go off. So this is not a really good approach. But let us look at the approach of electronics. So what you can do is have sensors and then simulate touch accordingly. So what you'll be doing using electronics is have sensors, have light dependent sensors on all on top of each of the LEDs, and then connect them to the Arduino and try to detect which is glowing, and accordingly simulate a touch on top of each of these. So that would be the easiest way to do this. Approach 3 will also work, but I think approach 2 is the best way to do it because you need less items and it's easier. So that's all for this video. I hope you're as excited as I am to learn more and solve your first game. So in the next couple of videos, we are going to learn some basics of electronics and image processing. So if you already have experience with image processing in MATLAB and using the microcontroller Arduino, you can just skip the next 2 videos or just skim through them and continue in the future videos.